the female lead was kidnapped by a slave trader. As the villain who was destined to die first, she secretly offered warmth to save her own life. Unexpectedly, she became the female lead's absolute favorite, was fought over by the two protagonists, and eventually entered the Duke's household, becoming the beloved darling of the family. When Mello was 10 years old, she realized she had been living inside a novel. 5-year-old female lead had lost her mother in a carriage accident, and the slave trader who kidnapped her, along with her daughter, subjected her to long-term abuse and torture. In the end, both mother and daughter were executed on the spot by the Duke. Knowing her fate, Mello tried to persuade her mother to quit, but her mother simply warned her to get out if she didn't want to stay. Mello gave up on her first plan of action. So a year later, on the day her mother insisted on bringing the female lead back, her second plan of action began. If she was just a little friendlier to the female lead, she might at least keep her life. However, there were two obstacles to this goal. The first was her mother. Whenever she caught her daughter taking care of the child, she would scold them both. After her mother left, Mello carefully brought over a meal. "Is your name Loretta?" "That's the name engraved on your necklace." The little girl only sobbed, her curled-up figure looking somewhat pitiful. Mello gently pushed the plate over and left, watching the girl's every move through the crack in the door. Perhaps because she had been hungry for too long, Loretta cautiously turned her head, slowly inching forward while hiding under the blanket. Seeing that the girl was satisfied with the food, Mello breathed a sigh of relief. But she was quickly spotted, and Loretta grabbed the plate and shrank back into the corner. When night fell, Mello patted her bed. "Sleep on the bed in my room. It might be crude for a noble young lady, but it's much better than sleeping on a chair." Loretta quickly curled up into a ball and began to whimper softly. Unable to cry freely, Mello carefully reached out her hand, wanting to comfort the poor child. But she couldn't bear to get any closer. To Loretta right now, she was just the daughter of a slave trader. But Mello didn't give up and kept trying her best to take care of her. About 2 weeks later, Loretta didn't run away or hide anymore, which was a sign that she was opening up. One night, a heavy rainstorm hit. Loretta ran into Mello's room and hugged her tight, refusing to let go, looking terrified of something. "Did my mother hit you again?" At a loss for what to do, Mello decided to open the window first, hoping the cool breeze might soothe Loretta's heart. But the crying only grew louder. Mello quickly closed the window. Perhaps the rain that took her mother's life had left a shadow in Loretta's heart. She comforted the girl. "If you cover your ears with your hands, you won't hear it." Leaning against the corner of the bed, Loretta slowly turned around. Mello took her 2 small hands and moved them over the girl's ears. "How about blocking it like this? Is the sound of the rain a little quieter?" Facing the tearful Loretta, she tried her best to smile. The two lay on the same bed, and Mello softly coaxed her. "You will be happy soon. Don't be afraid, go to sleep." Sure enough, the very next day, the Duke tracked down his daughter's whereabouts. Protecting the female lead kidnapped by her mother, the villain surprisingly became the favorite. Since spending that night together, the female lead gradually opened her heart to Mello. She drew a picture of them holding hands on a piece of paper, and proudly showed it off, fishing for compliments. Mello rewarded her with a small cookie, which Loretta happily munched on. Afterwards, the two played house, but Mello was forced to play the baby. When she asked who would be the mother, Loretta's little head shook in confusion. It seemed she had completely forgotten about her mother's existence. Feeling a pang of heartache, Mello prayed that the little one would go home soon. Loretta asked again, "Is Mello coming home with me too?" This question stumped Mello. This place was her home. Hearing this, little Loretta burst into tears. If Mello doesn't come, no one will help Loretta cover her ears. The slave trader mother rushed in upon hearing the noise. "If you keep making a racket, you little brat, I'll stuff your mouth in a cesspit." Then she slammed the door and left. The room fell silent and Mello softly comforted her. Loretta held back her tears, wanting to go to a different house with Mello. Not long after, the mother brought good news. "That little brat is worth more than I thought. What a stroke of luck. You'd better take good care of her from now on." Seeing her daughter ignore her, the mother scolded her for being stupid. Mello talked back, saying she wasn't stupid, which completely enraged her mother. A pot of boiling hot soup fell, spilling right onto Mello's leg. A sharp pain shot through her, leaving a very obvious burn. Little Loretta scrambled down from her chair in a panic, but slipped on the soup and tumbled to the floor. Ignoring her own pain, Mello quickly went to check on her. Her mother yelled at her to go get a doctor, and Mello ran out without even putting on a coat. Despite the continuous autumn rain, her running speed didn't slow down at all. As she ran through the rain, she was filled with regret. If she hadn't talked back, Retta might not have gotten hurt. A stone that tripped her actually made her mind clearer. As she sprinted past, a noble's carriage drove by, but Mello didn't notice it. She quickly found the only doctor in the village. The two rode a horse back home, only to find a carriage parked in front of the house. Mello finally realized that today was the day Retta was leaving. Because her mother was a criminal, the doctor was willing to risk hiding Mello so she wouldn't be implicated. But what about Retta's injury? Just then, a man walked out of the house, with little Loretta following closely behind, hugging her teddy bear. Mello's hanging heart finally settled. The first chapter of the novel had ended, but it was strange. She had always hoped Retta would go home quickly and live a happy, comfortable life, yet now she felt a bit sad. Suddenly, her mother was dragged out and thrown to the ground. Seeing this, the doctor urged her to leave quickly, but then she heard someone calling her. Only Retta would call her like that. The next day, the grand carriage and the cheerful girl were gone, leaving behind only that drawing. Mello knew very well that she would never see that child again, and those happy times would fade away. If Retta were here right now, she would comfort her. She didn't know if she was hallucinating, but she actually heard her voice from behind. 2 little feet came into view, and they opened their arms at the same time as little Loretta threw herself into Mello's embrace. Just because of the female lead's favoritism, she went from a villain to the center of attention. Seeing Mello shed tears, little Loretta immediately snuggled into her arms. Who made baby Mello cry? Big sister Retta will beat them up for you. Just like when they played house before, she comforted Mello once again. Crying tears of joy, Mello couldn't stop hiccuping. But why had the female lead, who was supposed to return to the Duke's estate, come back here? At that moment, a man handed her some water. You must be the slave trader's daughter. Mello jumped in surprise. He was the father of the 3 sons and 1 daughter on the novel's cover, the Duke. Mello quickly bowed her head and apologized. The Duke was a man who distinguished right from wrong. Because she wasn't her mother's accomplice, he didn't punish her. Instead, he offered to sponsor her to go to an orphanage. But this also meant they would never have the chance to see each other again. Little Loretta didn't want to be separated from Mello. When I used to be scared of the rain, Mello would cover my ears. So I really like Mello. Do you like Loretta? Mello squeezed her small hand tight. Of course. Mello really likes Loretta too. Hearing this, little Loretta cheered happily. Then Loretta and Mello like each other. Yesterday, without Mello by my side, I cried. Papa is a lucky star. So please let Loretta and Mello stay together. His daughter's very first request was to bring a slave trader's daughter back to the Duke's estate. Just reuniting with Mello had softened her expression significantly, and her mood was indeed much better than the night before. Afterwards, the Duke asked for her opinion. Mello thought about it for a while. If she stayed in the village to study medicine, she might live a freer life, but she couldn't just leave Retta alone. Mello clearly knew the hardships the female lead would face in the future, and she wanted Retta to always be happy. Then she was the only one who could change Retta's future for the better. Mello agreed. Later, she went to her teacher and informed him of the news that she would be going to the capital. Her teacher gave her some medicinal herbs and told her that if she ever ran into trouble, she could always come back. He also had one request. If you see my son in the capital, don't forget to give him a punch. That brat hasn't sent a single word. Go on now, may God's blessing be with you. After getting on the carriage, little Loretta fell asleep resting on her lap. It was obvious that his daughter liked her very much. At this moment, Mello whispered, Retta has lost her past memories, perhaps due to too much trauma. She has forgotten her mother's existence and was left with a shadow from that accident, so she still needs time to recover. But I can guarantee that Loretta is definitely your daughter. It's not just the physical resemblance. That sparkling feeling is exactly the same. The Duke was stunned for a moment before stating that he owed Mello a favor. Soon they arrived back in the capital. A guard rushed over to report that the Emperor had urgently summoned him, so he had no choice but to send them back to the Duke's estate first. As soon as the 2 little ones arrived home, Mello was ordered to take a bath. A fierce-looking older woman told her, Don't be like a stinky little lamb, hurry up and take off those smelly rags. Unexpectedly, Mello scalded her hand with the hot water. She wanted to pour some cold water herself, but the older woman strode forward and stopped her, scaring Mello so much she didn't dare make a peep. But in reality, she had a sharp tongue but a soft heart. She prepared nice warm water and exquisite bath toys, noticing the bruises on the girl's body. The older woman remained silent for a long time before applying ointment to them. When night fell, little Loretta gasped in awe, saying these were pajamas given to her by the grandma. The 2 little girls chatted for a long time until little Loretta yawned, and Mello tucked her in. The next morning, a shadow loomed over the blanket. Mello thought it was the grandma, but instead heard a boy's voice. Is this tiny ugly thing really a member of the Baldwin family? Mello instantly realized it was the female lead's second brother, Ronnie. According to the novel's plot, his next move would be to pinch the sleeping Retta awake. Mello reached out her hand just in time to stop him, placing a finger over her lips to tell him to be quiet. The sudden appearance of the girl left Ronnie flustered. Blushing beet red, he shook off her hand and ended up tripping the next second. He muttered under his breath, Damn it, Who is that weird girl? Mello approached him and extended a caring hand. Are you all right? Ronnie instinctively scrambled back and got up, angrily accusing her of being a fraud. They always bring random girls back, claiming it's his lost sister. But those people are all fakes? Dropping those harsh words, he slammed the door and left. Mello had long expected him to act this way. After little Loretta woke up, she went out to play and happened to run into her papa. She waved her arms excitedly and declared, "Papa is Loretta's big treasure. And from now on, Loretta will be Papa's little treasure too." The Duke offered a delayed, "Thank you." Seeing the maids running over, the little one took the opportunity to dash off again. The Duke instructed the butler to get rid of any sharp furniture. When the butler suggested he go see the young lady, the Duke refused. Hearing this, the maids all suspected whether Loretta was truly the Duke's daughter. So when they tossed this question to the young lady who was enjoying dessert, little Loretta confirmed it. But it wasn't the priest who said so, it was Mello. A maid impatiently added, "Is it okay even if Mello falls into danger? If you can't prove you're the Duke's real daughter, Lady Mello will be thrown in prison for lying." That night, she asked Mello what she had to do to make the Duke happy. Mello thought for a moment, then told her to follow along, taking a deep breath and then exhaling. Even if Loretta does absolutely nothing, the Duke will still like you. Little Loretta recounted what happened during the day and asked Mello if the Duke was a kind person. Mello told her about the Duke's caring actions earlier that day, and Retta quickly changed her tune. Hearing his daughter say she liked him, the Duke, standing outside the door, awkwardly asked his butler, "What do children like about me?" The villain accidentally became the favorite. The female lead and the brother fought over little Loretta, and even the aloof Duke was won over, gifting the two little ones sky blue wool hats. Little Loretta excitedly put hers on and spun around them happily. Mello also put on the wool hat, while the butler and the madam looked on with pure satisfaction. But the maid tried to drive a wedge, taking credit for the Duke's sudden care. "It's all thanks to the young lady acting cute, just like I told her to, that she received such a pretty gift." While she was feeling smug, little Loretta looked off into the distance. The moment she spotted her target, she ran right over. By the time the maid turned around, it was too late. The head maid was glaring ominously in her direction. Mello had previously told her that as long as little Loretta was around, if she got bullied, she should go find the fierce grandma. The maid kept trying to talk her way out of it. "The young lady is still little, she must have misspoken." Little Loretta turned back and repeated the words from that day word for word. Before the priest acknowledges that Retta is the Duke's daughter, the only way to protect Mello is to act cute and curry favor with the Duke. The maid denied everything entirely. The grandma ripped off the maid's family crest in one swift motion, and only then did the maid realize the severity of the situation, immediately dropping to her knees and admitting her mistake. Seeing the madam remain silent, she turned and directed her anger at Retta. "I worked so hard to get in here, and it's all ruined because of you. You little brat!" The moment her hand came down for a slap, Mello stood in front of little Loretta. "Please do not touch the young lady." As expected, the maid was fired. Little Loretta paid no mind to it, instead raising her fork and asking, "Can I eat the carrot cake? Let's all eat it together." "Okay?" The madam and the butler exchanged a smile. The harmonious scene was incredibly healing. Soon this matter reached the Duke's ears. He beat around the bush, asking the butler all sorts of questions, but he couldn't quite bring himself to ask what he really wanted to. But no. How did those two little ones react when they received the hats? At that moment, Mello knocked on the door. She was here to apologize. Because Loretta had fallen asleep, she had no choice but to come in the young lady's place. Seeing that he looked busy reviewing documents, Mello unconsciously smiled. "Lady Loretta is getting quite good at greeting guests. If you were to join us, surely—" Before she could finish, the Duke cut her off. "I'm not particularly fond of afternoon tea." He verbally told her to go back to her room and sleep, but internally he was thinking, "She looks so pale. Is she feeling unwell?" Before leaving, Mello left him with a few words. "The hat is very beautiful." "Thank you. I will cherish it." After expressing her gratitude, the girl left. The Duke blankly replied with a simple, "All right." For the next few days, Mello spent her time in the kitchen, but the madam told her she couldn't come tomorrow. The family had sent 3 elders, and she reminded Mello not to wander around alone late at night, or something terrible would happen. As Mello walked through the corridor, it felt eerie, and remembering the madam's words made her even more frightened. Suddenly, a hand appeared from behind her, but Mello dodged it with a quick spin. "Why is it you, Master Ronnie?" The female lead brought her villainous older sister home, and she unexpectedly became the adored favorite surrounded by everyone. However, the Grand Elder wanted to drive them away, so the second brother, Ronnie, rushed over in the middle of the night to warn them. With a serious expression, he gestured for Mello to come closer and whispered in her ear, "Be careful of the elders. They might try every possible way to chase you out, especially the Grand Elder." Aside from gratitude, Mello felt mostly shocked toward Ronnie. The meanest second young master in the original story was now actually worried about their safety. Mello said she would pass the message along to the young lady. The young lady should also know that you're very worried about her. Ronnie shouted defensively, "Am I crazy?" Mello suddenly cracked a joke. "Then were you worrying about me?" Hearing this, he shot up instantly, turned his back to her, and flopped face down onto the sofa. Mello quickly changed her tune. "I'm sorry, young master. It's indeed highly unlikely that you'd care about me." Ronnie looked back at her and angrily shot back with the opposite of what he meant. "You are seriously so ugly." Then he swiftly slammed the door and left. Mello stuck her tongue out at him. Early the next morning, the two little ones were forced out of bed. Mello asked what was going on, and the maids excitedly explained that the Duke had sent them gifts again. Watching the explosively cute young lady eagerly tear open her present, they saw that this time it was a green hair bow adorned with gemstones. On the other side, the Duke was being pressured by the elders. They firmly refused to allow a slave trader's child to be brought into the family on a whim. The Duke stated that the child was a guest he had invited. The Grand Elder spoke calmly. "Duke, you know very well that no matter the reason, the filthy bloodline of a criminal cannot enter the sacred Baldwin family. Even a single toe is a desecration. Surely the previous Duke would never have allowed it either." The Duke remained unmoved. "It is the master's right to invite whoever he wishes as a guest." A dead silence filled the room, broken only when the butler brought news. The reply from the temple had arrived. When night fell, Mello had little Loretta bring her favorite pillow. According to the novel's plot, the elders, in order to stop the female lead from going to the temple, would secretly sneak her out of the estate. Therefore, she had to take Retta to the safest place. Taking a deep breath, she mustered the courage to knock on the door. The door opened quickly and Mello bravely asked, "Can you help us?" Just as the Duke was about to ask, Mello explained, "Just in case. Master Ronnie told us to be careful." The Duke was the most reliable person, because when the female lead was kidnapped, he fought harder than anyone else to save her. The Duke said he understood and would guarantee their safety. Mello stood up to express her gratitude. Just as she was about to leave, little Loretta struggled to open her eyes and asked why she wasn't sleeping with her. The Duke vaguely recalled the elder's words, but was interrupted a second later by a shout. "No, Loretta will cry without Mello." She clung to Mello, refusing to let go, then turned around and gave the Duke a thumbs up. This made Mello a little awkward, but surprisingly, the Duke gave a thumbs up in return. Little Loretta successfully managed to make Mello stay. The Duke remembered the headmaid's words. She really was like a little lamb. At that moment, little Loretta patted the bed. She had saved a spot for the Duke, too. Right after little Loretta left, the elders tried to chase Mello away, violently tearing off her hair bow and tossing her a sum of money for her troubles. Seeing Mello refuse to obey, the elder yanked her into a carriage, claiming he was taking her to find her slave trader mother. Mello was gripped by fear. If her mother got out of prison, she would definitely sell her off first thing. The elder berated her for being an unfilial daughter, while Mello kept crying and begging to be let go. The madam rushed over upon hearing the commotion and shoved the elder aside. Looking at the trembling Mello, she gently stroked the girl's face, comforting her that there was no need to listen to the ramblings of a crazy old man. Mello felt like she had grabbed a lifeline, but the elder remained relentless. The madam loudly reprimanded, "Just because you voiced a few grumbles in front of the Duke, you think you can do whatever you please? You're just a bunch of stubborn old geezers." Suddenly, with a loud thud, the elder landed a punch right on her temple. Crying out for Grandma, Mello ran over to help her up, but she was tied up the very next second. Her weak little body was completely unable to put up any resistance. Mello was quickly taken to an underground prison, where a woman in tattered clothes was locked up opposite her. "Say hello to your mother. As long as you leave the capital forever, neither of you will face any more trouble." A few hours earlier, the temple had confirmed that Lady Loretta was indeed the Duke's daughter. Little Loretta asked her papa very calmly, "Can I go find Mello now?" But upon returning to the Duke's estate, they were told by the elders that the girl had taken the money and left. The Duke wouldn't believe them so easily, not unless he heard it from her himself. Seeing this, the elder quickly called out to stop the Duke. "You're not going to snatch her away from her mother, are you? Lady Mello is currently reuniting with her mother in prison, but Loretta wants to see Mello." So the elder suggested that his own granddaughter could play with her instead. The young lady will soon forget about that brat. Hearing this, little Loretta was having none of it. Loretta will never forget Mello. Just then, the madam walked over. Meanwhile, the mother begged the elder to let her out, then interrogated Mello about where the money was. Hearing her daughter say she left it at the Duke's estate, the mother instantly flew into a rage. Mello kept her head down, apologizing profusely. "Don't lie to me. You did it to keep your mother trapped here so you could keep all the money for yourself. Didn't you?" She furiously shook her daughter's body. Give it to me right now. It's my money. Her grip on Mello grew tighter and tighter. If there hadn't been iron bars separating the two, she probably would have gone even further. Seeing this unfold, the prison guard kicked her aside. But when he turned around, he saw a familiar figure. If you don't remove that foot immediately, I'll chop it off. When he saw Mello being bullied, he raised his sword, ready to chop off the guard's wretched leg. Then he pulled out the coin pouch and returned it to Mello. I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were missing sooner. He respected Mello's decision. As long as Mello wanted it, he would let her and her mother go. This money would also be enough for them to live on. Mello was deeply conflicted. She was afraid she would ruin their happiness in the future. The Duke told her not to worry about it. If you aren't around in the future, Loretta will start crying tonight and never stop. In her moment of hesitation, a pleading voice echoed from the darkness of the prison. Mello, you won't abandon me, right? I only did those things to raise you. But as long as we have this money, I can stop selling slaves. Because she was getting closer and closer to the bars, the Duke ordered his knights to stop her. Mello said it was fine, and her mother's face lit up with joy. My good daughter, I knew you would save me. But her eyes were fixed solely on the coin pouch. Mello threw it down roughly to her. I wish you and your dear daughter happiness. The mother scrambled to grab the gold coins scattered on the floor. Mello stepped back to the Duke's side. It seemed she had found her true daughter. The Duke quickly understood what Mello meant. Inmates weren't allowed to have personal property in prison. Her daughter was about to be robbed by the guards. Afterward, Mello left with a chilled heart, apologizing to the Duke for her unreasonable behavior. But the Duke didn't mind. Instead, he asked her what she thought and whether she wanted to return to the Duke's estate. Mello's heart wavered. Suddenly, she heard someone calling her name. She saw Retta sprinting toward her, throwing herself into Mello's arms and sobbing, and with that, she made her decision. After returning home, a maid told her how the young lady had defeated the elders, looking exactly like the Duke with her unyielding demeanor. Just then, little Loretta ran in carrying a doll and gently blew on Mello's injured leg. You must have been really scared, right? Mello stammered out a question. Why do you like me? For a small child? This was a tough question, but she truly liked Mello very much. Mello couldn't stop her tears from falling. She super liked Retta, too. Not long after, upon learning that his sister had returned, the eldest young master hurried back home. But little Loretta was very unhappy. No matter what the maids asked, she refused to tell them the reason. She lay distressed by the window, muttering, "Life is too bitter." Under a maid's persistent questioning, little Loretta told her it was a secret that must be kept. Her brother had told her earlier that Mello and Loretta weren't family, so they couldn't be together forever. Maybe I should just ask Papa to give birth to a Mello for me. Hearing this adorable complaint, the maid held back a smile. Does the young lady want Mello to become a member of the Baldwin family? If that's the case, there's a way, even if the Duke doesn't give birth to her. Little Loretta waited for the answer with full anticipation. The maid had the word marriage on the tip of her tongue, but quickly swallowed it back. Later, when discussing this with a colleague, little Loretta secretly followed her and happened to overhear the entire conversation. Having a sudden realization, she clapped her little hands together, running off while thanking the maid. Now I've got it all figured out. In order to become family with the villain, the female lead was determined to matchmake her with her brothers. Therefore, the butler became little Loretta's helper. She had Mello replace her to deliver afternoon tea to the eldest young master every day. Not wanting to disappoint her, Mello promised that she would definitely do her best. The grandma told her not to push herself too hard. Although she looked fierce, Mello knew the grandma was just caring about her. When night fell and the eldest young master returned to the estate, the butler updated him on the household affairs. When the two little ones were mentioned, Claude inexplicably took an interest. The next day, the siblings quickly bonded. Watching them play so happily, Mello couldn't help but marvel. As expected of Claude, the #1 sister-doting maniac of the Baldwin family. In the novel she read in her past life, her favorite character was Claude. She often fantasized about what it would be like if she had a family member like him. The moment she looked up and made eye contact, she was nearly blinded by his dazzlingly handsome face. Claude found it amusing. Do I look that strange? You don't even dare to look me in the eye. It's a pleasure to meet you, Lady Mello. Just then, little Loretta ran over and said, Loretta has been waiting obediently for Mello. When Mello asked her why, the little girl's face suddenly blushed red with shyness as she stammered, Mello and Loretta like each other, right? So I want Mello to marry Loretta. Hearing this, the two of them froze simultaneously. Little Loretta promised her, Loretta will make Mello happy. Listening to the little one's adorable confession, Mello hugged her tightly. However, a sudden chill swept up from behind, and Mello instantly sensed danger. When it was time to deliver the afternoon tea, despite her fear, she mustered the courage to knock on the door. The door quickly opened, and Claude greeted her amicably. I heard you want to learn the etiquette of the capital. Because you want to stay by Retta's side? I will stay by Lady Loretta's side forever. This inadvertently blurted true feeling caused Claude's expression to gradually turn cold. Mello immediately realized she had provoked the young master's jealousy. But very quickly he reverted to an amiable tone. All right, goodbye. With a bang, the door shut in her face. What was going on? The next day, she tossed out another bait. Don't you want to hear the story of how Lady Loretta and I first met? Yet Claude showed no reaction. Every day after that, whenever she and little Loretta were together, he would put on a warm, friendly act toward Mello. But when delivering tea in the afternoon, she was still shut out. Then she saw the main hall in a total mess. The Duke was firing a servant. Because the Duke despised liars the most. The female lead had proposed to the villain 88 times, sparking the jealousy of her sister-obsessed brother. When his sister was around, he was all smiles and sunshine. When she wasn't, he shut Mello out completely. Today, when she went to deliver tea as usual, she found Claude wasn't there, so she quietly placed the tea on the table. But right as she was leaving, Mello collided head-on with Claude. In order to protect the falling Mello, his hand was scalded by hot water. Fortunately, Mello was unhurt. She hurried to get up to find some cold water, but Claude stopped her. It's not a major injury, just let a servant fetch it. To ease Mello's panic, Claude had her count from 1 to 100. Once she had calmed down, Claude asked gently, "How is it? Do you feel a bit more relaxed?" Mello bowed her head and apologized. And Claude also expressed his regret. "I was just thinking about rushing back to the room before she arrived, but I ended up accidentally bumping into you." Mello casually remarked, "You ignore me anyway, young master." Hearing this, he lowered his head in guilt. "I'm truly sorry. I always felt I should apologize, but for some reason, I just couldn't bring myself to say it. I was jealous because you and Retta are too close. You must think I'm very childish right now." "Don't you?" Mello said she completely understood. After all, the men of the Duke's family were often deeply drawn to rivals at first sight. Realizing she had slipped up, she frantically tried to explain. At this, Claude smiled. "You don't really listen to other people's advice. Do you, Lady Mello?" He then patted Mello on the forehead. "Panicking won't solve the problem. Facing mistakes calmly is very important." Mello's face flushed bright red, her clear mind gradually growing fuzzy again. But thanks to the young master, she felt much better now. Suddenly, Claude leaned closer, flashed a friendly smile, and asked, "Is it okay if I torment you just a little bit?" Recalling what he had just said, Mello realized she had been played. Using his hurt hand as an excuse, Claude made her come over every afternoon to help him handle paperwork. Looking at Claude leisurely sipping his tea, Mello couldn't believe it. His hand had fully healed in just 2 days. Yet she was still stuck helping with the work. Walking downstairs late at night while yawning, Mello accidentally bumped into someone. Just as she was about to apologize, the man glared at her viciously, but quickly walked away. At this time, a maid told Mello that the Duke had prepared a new hair accessory for her. Receiving such care, Mello gave a rare, genuine smile. However, the Duke noticed dark ink stains on her cuffs. Afraid the Duke might think she was a dirty child, she quickly explained that she got it on her while writing. The Duke looked at the shy girl, thinking it must be her past environment that made her so overly cautious. Suddenly, a large hand rested on Mello's head, as he worried whether the child would apologize yet again. "Thank you." This unexpected reply made him pause for a moment, but he quickly pressed the ribbon into Mello's hand. For the next few days, Mello kept watch outside little Loretta's door. In the original story, someone took the opportunity to ruin her wardrobe, so she was staking out the place. Unexpectedly, Claude suddenly appeared, scaring Mello into stumbling backward. Sneaking around and staring at the dressing room in the middle of the night, it was a situation hard not to misunderstand. Mello blurted out, "I haven't stolen anything yet." Claude couldn't help but tease. "Haven't stolen anything yet, meaning you're about to commit the crime?" Listening to her incoherent explanations, Claude found it highly entertaining. "Lady Mello is so smart, if you were to steal anything, it would be a ring, wouldn't it? But it's okay, I won't stop you." Having a flash of inspiration, Mello immediately explained her true purpose, saying she had accidentally overheard the elders planning to do something nasty to Retta. Hearing this, Claude's face turned serious, stating that Mello shouldn't act rashly and should find a trustworthy adult to handle it. Then he draped his coat over Mello's shoulders, took her hand, and motioned for her to come with him. "I'll have you asleep within 10 minutes. Afterward, Mello was brought to the kitchen, where she drank a special secret recipe honey milk. Thinking back on it, she realized she had completely misunderstood his intentions. Before leaving, Claude draped his coat over her. "Then come to my room tomorrow as well. After all, there are still plenty of documents that need Mello's writing." After a bout of playful banter, Mello yawned and walked back to her room. But the moment she opened the door, she found her precious ribbon had been burned. Perhaps the culprit had realized she was guarding Retta's wardrobe every night, so they took their anger out on her instead. The next day, the elders were in a hurry to leave, not forgetting to mock Mello one last time before their departure. Hearing this, the Duke's face grew dark. Just then, Mello walked over with wide strides, carrying the burnt hair accessory. The elder took the opportunity to scold her behavior, and a maid advised her not to go over. If it were normal times, she might have endured it silently, but the situation was different now. She had never been this angry before. Don't panic, stay calm, just like young Master Claude said. Facing the elder's vicious words, Mello resolutely raised her head. When the elder tried to chase her away, the Duke immediately shielded Mello. Feeling a warmth she had never experienced before, Mello slowly held out the hair accessory. I know my status. My mother is a criminal. It is only by the Duke's grace that I am able to live in this estate. So there is no way I would ruin something the Duke gave me like this. The only reason I can stay here relies entirely on the Duke's magnanimity. This is my most treasured possession, but I never expected that an adult would actually sneak into a child's room just to destroy a ribbon. If I had known, I would have been more careful. The Duke hurriedly knelt down to check if she was hurt. But upon hearing Mello apologize yet again, the Duke was completely enraged. Mello tugged at the hem of his coat to stop him. Inflicting a sense of guilt was an excellent manipulation tactic, making it so those elders didn't even dare to bid farewell. After some persuasion, the Duke merely ordered them to be thrown out. Mello returned to her room alone, recalling how the madam had helped her mend the hairbow the night before, adding a little lamb to it. It was precisely because everyone cared for her so much that she found the courage to fight back. However, some things, once broken, can never return to their original state no matter how much you try to fix them. At this moment, there was a knock on the door, but Mello had no intention of opening it. That was, until a voice came from outside. It can't be helped, Loretta. Lady Mello seems to be asleep. Hearing that it was Retta, Mello ran to open the door right away. Every time this happened, the little girl would tightly hug her with her small arms. But to her disappointment, there was no sign of Loretta, only Claude standing there alone. Realizing she had been tricked, Mello instantly slammed the door shut, while apologies poured in continuously from the other side. The first one to notice you were upset was Loretta. As for the reason why she didn't come, it's a bit embarrassing for me to say it myself. Hearing this, Mello angrily threw the door open and yelled, "You're obviously just jealous!" Claude handed her a handkerchief, and Mello said very seriously, "I need to blow my nose." After calming down, she couldn't stop hiccuping. Claude muttered under his breath, "Cute. To see the adorable Loretta soon, so are you coming along?" Mello looked at him with utmost suspicion. Claude extended his hand again, because promises must be kept. Mello naturally placed her hand in his and followed him to the room. The female lead's crazy adoration for the villain made her a thorn in the brother's side. Yet now the villain had actually become everyone's favorite. Late at night, Claude took her into the study, having her continue working there. The oblivious Mello thought it was just his twisted sense of humor. Muttering to herself, "The young master is really annoying right now, forcing me to work overtime this late." Claude walked over to the desk. "Then please write your name here, Lady Mello." Although she didn't know what his intention was, Mello obediently picked up the pen and signed her name in the notebook. At this moment, it felt like she was being rewarded. Mello carefully asked, "Is this for me?" Claude gave a meaningful smile. The Baldwin family places great importance on records. Clearly organized records of the past will definitely be of help in the future. Noticing an empty spot on the bookshelf, Mello slid the book in her hands right into it. Did you know? If someone uses this record for research, do you know what they write at the very end of the research book? This research references the records compiled by Duke Baldwin and Lady Mello. Mello pointed out that she wasn't a member of the Duke's family. Claude rested his arm against the bookshelf. "You just have to marry someone from the Baldwin family." Her flustered reaction made him unable to resist teasing her. "My lovely sister said she wanted to do just that." Mello lowered her head in embarrassment. Just the issue of her background alone made it impossible for her to marry a son of the Duke's family. Claude brushed it off, saying it didn't matter. Then he suddenly gasped, "Is my little sister going to get dumped?" Mello hastily explained, "Loretta is so cute. We'll be together forever." But then she got a bad feeling. The last time she said something like this, Claude threw her out. Unexpectedly, he covered his mouth and laughed. "Yes. Well, I can't get married anyway, and Loretta also has someone she needs." Mello couldn't help but think of the male lead. Afterward, the two left the study. As soon as she saw Mello, little Loretta flew into her arms, saying she had a gift for her. She had waited for Mello all alone for a long time, and at the mention of the word gift, Mello couldn't help but think of that notebook. At that moment, little Loretta expectantly clenched her tiny hands. "Did you like the gift?" Mello was stunned for 3 seconds, but once she realized what she meant, she smiled happily. "I liked it very much." Loretta's expression quickly brightened, and struggling to stand on her tiptoes, she snuggled right into the embrace of her favorite Mello. Not long after, the execution date for Mello's mother was set. However, her final request was to live with her daughter before she died. Her final dying wish was actually to have her daughter live in the prison with her indefinitely. When the Duke informed Mello of this, Mello thought for a moment before uttering an apology. Hearing her apologize once again, the Duke felt an inexplicable pang of heartache. As Mello's guardian, he offered his perspective. Although one must try to fulfill it for humanitarian reasons, if the request involves another person, then one has the right to refuse. But deep down, Mello knew that her mother's reason for doing this wasn't because she actually wanted to see her. It was merely a desire to alleviate her own guilt as she faced the unknown afterlife. The Duke gave her 2 weeks to think it over, but Mello shook her head. The last time she had clearly realized that she was not her mother's beloved daughter. The shiny gold coins were the result of toiling from dawn to dusk doing all sorts of chores, trying her best to cater to her mother's moods. Yet the affection she received in return lasted only for a fleeting moment. Gripping the hem of her clothes slightly, Mello firmly stated that she didn't want to go. She didn't want to be hurt anymore. Hearing the girl's decision, the Duke smiled with great relief. Thank you for choosing a path that won't hurt you even more. Even in such a swamp, she still radiated a dazzling, gem-like strength. Mello asked to go sign the papers in person, because she had a strange illusion that from the moment she wrote down those words, she would finally be able to step out from her mother's shadow. The Duke readily agreed. However, the next day, Claude escorted Mello to the prison in the Duke's place. Running out in a panic without her gloves, she ended up being teased by Claude. After speaking, he handed her his own black gloves. Mello touched the soft gloves, pondering and asking if the Duke was doing well, then blaming herself. Claude told her firmly, Lady Mello has done absolutely nothing wrong, so a child doesn't need to worry about this. She lowered her head in disappointment. She was always treated like a child, even though they were only 4 years apart. She slowly slid the gloves over her fingertips, muttering to herself about when she would grow that big. When Claude asked about her birthday, Mello lowered her head and said, I don't know. Having accidentally touched upon the girl's sore spot, Claude didn't pry any further. Mello smiled bitterly and answered, It's in the spring. Whenever the yellow spring flowers bloom, I add another year to my age. Amazed by the girl's unique romance, just as winter passed and spring arrived, the carriage rolled to a stop. Claude let out a soft sigh and pulled a document from his coat. The knight standing guard at the gate took the paper, and just as he verified it and was about to hand it back, he saw a familiar face, leaning against the carriage window and staring intently for a long time. Facing this rude behavior, Claude clearly displayed his displeasure. The boy spoke up tentatively. Mello? It was as if he was plucking at a precious memory from a long time ago. Soon he took off his helmet, and the moment she saw his face clearly, Mello pressed against the window in pleasant surprise. It was her childhood friend Isaiah. Whenever she was bullied and shed tears of grievance, he would always be the first to show up. And he never came empty-handed. He would beat up the kids who bullied Mello and tie them all up to bring back together. Claude leaned close to her ear, suggesting she write a letter to the person she liked the most. Mello looked at him with a face full of confusion, not understanding. Isaiah indignantly stood up for the girl. Being too kind isn't always a good thing. You can't even get revenge on the people who bully you. When I first saw you in the carriage, I was really worried, guessing you might have come to see your mother, but thankfully you weren't. Thinking about all the things that Auntie has done to you, I can't let you agree to a criminal's final request, because this will definitely serve as the best revenge. Mello's thoughts were exactly the opposite. Only teaching someone a lesson with your own hands is the best revenge. Isaiah explained that methods of revenge were different. If she didn't show up, the auntie would surely be burning with anxiety, screaming her name, crying, and throwing a tantrum. Then he furrowed his brows and repeatedly urged her absolutely not to go see her. Upon hearing her promise, Isaiah asked again to confirm. Mello smiled bitterly and answered that she had decided not to get hurt anymore. Afterward, she and Claude went to carry it out. Within 2 weeks, her teacher would be able to receive news of his son. At this time, the postman suddenly brought up where the young master's birthday gifts should be delivered. Claude replied indifferently, The academy. Following that, Mello's eyes widened in surprise as the postman added, We will also make thorough preparations for the birthdays of Lady Loretta and Lady Mello. Mello thought this was too absurd. How could someone of her status be worthy of the Duke's treatment? When asked about her birthday, Mello lowered her head and spoke with embarrassment. She wasn't sure exactly which day it was either. She only remembered it was in the spring. The postman quickly stopped probing, and Mello stated that any day would be fine to send a gift. He soon left awkwardly, leaving the two standing there. Mello pondered for a long time. Why did she feel such a sense of desolation? At this point, Claude suddenly asked, Why don't you ask your mother? You seem quite curious about your birthday. Very quickly, he apologized again. If that made you uncomfortable, I apologize. Mello hurriedly waved her hands. She didn't really mind. It wasn't because of any constraints from the Duke either. On the contrary, the Duke respected her opinions very much. But seeing the worry filling his eyes, Claude suddenly extended an invitation. See you tonight. Mello stood stunned for a few seconds, having made a certain decision in her heart. It didn't matter if she didn't know her birthday or things like that. She had already told the Duke she wouldn't meet her mother, so why couldn't she give an answer? Thinking of Retta's adorable, innocent face, Mello felt healed once again. At this moment, there was a knock on the door, and the butler announced that Lady Mello's guest had arrived. Now, the sudden appearance of the second male lead made the siblings' positions even more precarious. Since they were childhood friends, whenever he saw Mello getting bullied when they were little, he would always be the first to step forward. Although she understood his good intentions, the kind-hearted Mello stopped him. Having suffered through this kind of torment herself, she didn't want to torment others in the same way. The boy pinched her cheeks and promised that he would always protect her from now on. However, his mother stubbornly wanted him to become a doctor. The boy's lively and humorous nature healed her closed-off heart. Isaiah suddenly took off his shoes, made her wear them, and quickly ran away. When night fell and Mello was still agonizing with worry, she happened to hear a noise at the window. It was the pair of shoes she had lost. Mello quickly pushed open the window, looking at the barefoot silhouette sprinting away in a panic, and a trace of warmth inexplicably bloomed in her heart. So when the two met again, Mello pounced over in excitement. In Isaiah's eyes, she still looked as tiny as ever. Hearing this, Mello pouted her lips and retorted that she had grown up. Isaiah chuckled. You're angry but won't admit it. When Mello is unhappy, her jaw tenses up. Who are you trying to fool? At this point, Claude interrupted their catch-up, inviting him to get on the carriage together. Although his face held a gentle expression, he was hiding daggers behind his smile. Hearing the man's somewhat gruff tone and his rude behavior towards a lady made Claude dissatisfied. Isaiah didn't perceive any malice. He just went about caring for Mello on his own. Mello stated that she was temporarily staying there and thus owed the Duke a favor. Isaiah didn't dig any deeper. Suddenly noticing the chocolates on the table, his eyes lit up, excitedly wanting to bring some back to share with his colleagues. Sharing good food with friends, this aspect of him hadn't changed one bit. Seeing this, Claude even instructed his servants to bring out more. At this point, Isaiah stood up to thank the young master. Not for the chocolates, but for taking care of Mello on his behalf. Claude wore a look of disdain, and his gaze landed on Mello once again. Mello blankly stared at the kneeling Isaiah, suddenly remembering a promise. If you run into my son in the capital, don't forget to give him a punch. Because she had promised her teacher to give him a punch, Mello brought her hand down without hesitation. As a son, how can you not contact your mother? Isaiah lowered his head in grievance, promising that he would definitely stay in touch from now on. As the two discussed how to write the letter, they suddenly shifted their gazes to Claude. He was the only person here with letter-writing experience. Time passed quickly, and the working hours at the central prison office came to an end. Feeling as though she had caused trouble for Claude, Mello felt very apologetic, but Claude said it was fine. With 2 weeks remaining, Mello was so moved she couldn't speak. However, her friend Isaiah went through a psychological struggle, while Claude stated that as long as he didn't lay a finger on his sister, it was fine. Bright and early the next morning, the completely clueless Isaiah showed up at the Duke's estate. He abruptly whipped out the foxtail grass he had hidden behind his back. Giving someone a gift of something they liked was also a form of etiquette. Mello murmured her thanks, thinking back to when they were kids, how they would always go looking for pretty foxtail grass together. Mello felt a bit ashamed for scolding him. Isaiah didn't mind. Instead, he told her to learn to be a bit more street smart. Mello then asked him what brought him here. Taking a sip of tea, Isaiah said he came to ask Claude for advice on writing a letter. Since he made a promise, he had to keep it. If someone aiming to be a knight broke their word, it would be a huge disaster. But unfortunately, Claude had been busy reviewing documents lately. Isaiah felt lucky that today was his day off so he could play with Mello until nightfall. But on second thought, he worried that Mello might be just as busy. Hearing this, she froze for a moment, then covered her mouth and giggled, saying it was fine. Suddenly, there was a noise from behind, and Claude opened the door, looking completely disheveled. Looking around, Mello asked with confusion what was wrong. Seeing that his sister wasn't there, Claude breathed a sigh of relief. Little Loretta was very interested in Mello's friend, and Mello reassured him it was fine. Despite how he looks, he's actually the child of the most reliable doctor in the village. He won't hurt the young lady. But when she turned around, she saw Isaiah licking every last bit of sugar out of his cup. At that moment, the butler asked, Lady Loretta would like to know if she can join you in meeting the guest. The two hastily said no. Little Loretta popped her small head out, whimpering, Mello, is it really a no? Both of their hearts instantly skipped a beat. The sister-obsessed brother quickly scooped her up and spun her around. As long as it's something you want, I'll agree to anything. Even Isaiah couldn't help but feel that the young master was a total sister-doting maniac. Afterward, the four of them hung out in the office, and Isaiah quickly learned how to write a letter. Claude handed a piece of paper to Mello, suggesting she give it a try too. Mello thought for a long time but didn't know what to write. Claude told her to recall things she had experienced, then whispered in her ear, "Isn't there someone right nearby who has helped you?" When informed that a guest had arrived, the first person Mello thought of was Isaiah. She immediately bowed and apologized to the butler, saying she should have told him not to just show up unannounced. The butler explained that the person wasn't Isaiah, but the postman uncle, because he had said things that hurt the girl earlier. He handed Mello the bouquet in his hands and apologized. Mello quickly said it was fine, and that her birthday being someday in the spring was indeed a fact. The uncle spoke sincerely. Even if it's the truth, there are some things one simply doesn't wish to recall. He suggested choosing her favorite day to be her birthday, saying it must be wonderful to exchange greeting letters with loved ones. Everyone has the right to enjoy happiness on their birthday. These words slowly seeped into Mello's heart. Frequent happiness was something she had never possessed. At this moment, she realized that if she kept running away like this, perhaps she would never achieve happiness. Ultimately, she made up her mind to disregard her agreement with Isaiah and go see her money-obsessed mother alone. Noticing the gloomy expression on the girl's face, Claude stepped forward to comfort her. "If you need it, you can take me with you. Let others know that you aren't someone who can be treated however they please." Mello didn't want to use the young master. She needed to speak to her mother alone. Before she left, Claude called out to her, "If you ever feel uncomfortable in there, come find me at any time. I'll be waiting for you right here." Although the young master always motivated people in the strangest ways, she would engrave these memories in her heart forever. The girl's sweet smile was completely at odds with the grim prison. Not long after she entered, a hand suddenly appeared and swiftly pulled her behind a wall. To her surprise, Isaiah happened to be right there. Mello looked up in shock as he raised a hand to signal her to stay quiet. "Wait here, I'll help you." Before Mello could explain, Isaiah grabbed her hand and yanked her away, escaping the line of sight of the soldier guiding her. Mello quickly tried to stop him, but the boy stubbornly pressed on, saying, "I'll show you how to escape. If you go out that way, you won't be spotted. Those nobles only pushed you in here to save face." Didn't they? Isaiah was completely deaf to reason right now. Those lunatics actually dared to bring Mello to a prison. It wasn't until Mello cried out in pain that he let go of her hand, and immediately apologized. Mello explained it was all a misunderstanding. She came here of her own free will. Seeing the boy didn't believe her, Mello firmly told him once again that it was the truth. "Incomprehensible," Isaiah demanded. "Just to see someone who won't be able to boss you around for the rest of her life?" Upon hearing her affirmative reply, the boy protested loudly. "I don't agree to this. That criminal's dying wish is just your mother's selfishness. I can't let you get hurt." Just as he finished speaking, Claude's voice echoed from a short distance away. "Isaiah, I don't want to use my status as a noble to order you around. Could I ask you to step aside?" Seeing this, Isaiah completely lost his temper, mistakenly believing that Claude was forcing Mello to see her mother in prison, and condemned nobles for being cold-blooded and heartless people. He then turned around and interrogated Mello. "Tell me the truth. Do you really not want to see your mother?" "The decision is yours to make." Mello clutched the hem of her clothes tightly. Isaiah was so furious, probably because he was clearly giving her a chance to protect herself. Yet all she felt right now was overwhelming guilt. When she looked up at Claude behind her, she saw him gazing at her with a face full of gentleness. Not wanting to let down either of their good intentions, she resolutely told the truth. "The Duke actually preferred that I didn't come here. This is my own decision. I want to see my mother." Isaiah looked at her in disbelief. There was absolutely no benefit to this, so why did she still want to see her? "You fool! Have you forgotten how you survived all this time?" He just wanted Mello to break free from her mother and live happily. At this moment, Mello cut him off. "Because I've decided how I want to live my life. That's why I need to see my mother." She smiled bitterly. "I'm okay now." But in Isaiah's eyes, that smile only represented sheer grievance. And Mello was always forcing herself like this. At this moment, Claude ordered his subordinates to take him away. Mello hurriedly tried to stop them. But halfway through her sentence, Claude made it clear that the punishment would be up to him to decide. Until then, the knights would ensure the young man's safety. Noticing the red marks on Mello's wrists, he wanted to treat them for her, but Mello politely declined. Instead, she was more curious about how Claude knew she was here. Talking and laughing, the two slowly made their way to the door. He stopped in his tracks and reassured her, "Be careful in there. I'll be waiting for you right here, so please come back quickly." Soon, Mello saw her mother's ugly, vicious face. But her first words were neither a greeting nor an expression of care. It was just blatant exploitation. She suddenly recalled what the Duke had said. "A dying person looking to alleviate their sins will use you without reason." Mello clearly recognized that her mother simply needed a place to lean on. She didn't genuinely want to apologize to her daughter. She just wanted to ease her own conscience. Mello told her there was no need to apologize, her gaze resolute as if she had completely let it go. Because I didn't ask you, so please do not give me any answers either. Having never faced such defiance from her daughter, the mother cursed in a rage, pinning all the blame on her. But all this misfortune was brought upon by the mother herself. If you keep being this unreasonable, I will leave right now. She refused to accept her mother's apologies anymore, deciding to strive for an ordinary life. To that end, there was only one thing her mother could help her with. Please tell me my birth date. The woman froze, stammering out a frantic explanation. Mello didn't want to listen to her drag it out. So when exactly was it? I don't know either. Yes. To her mother, she was merely the reason she got kicked out of a wealthy household. I guess I have my answer. With that, she turned to leave. The woman gripped the iron bars and shrieked desperately. I was in living hell myself back then. I just wanted to forget the days I gave birth to you as quickly as possible. I gave birth to you in the end, didn't I? You should be grateful for that, shouldn't you? Everyone stood by and did nothing back then, and there were soldiers patrolling every road. If that last family whose door I knocked on hadn't opened it for me, I would have been dead. It's all because of you that I suffered so much. So you can't treat me like this. Mello let out a sorrowful smile. She turned around and curtsied, finally able to cast away any expectations she held for her mother without hesitation. Farewell, mother. The woman screamed her name like a maniac. You little brat. I really shouldn't have given birth to you. She took large strides toward the prison exit. With warm sunlight falling on the hem of her skirt, she raised her eyes and looked ahead. Claude was standing right there, and the bitterness in her heart significantly lessened. It seems you've been waiting quite hard. What a competitive young master. The boy reached his hand out to her. Come here. As long as you come over, I'll take you away. What did he mean by taking her away? Claude pulled her out of the darkness-shrouded prison. Let's go, we're going home. When night fell, there was a knock on the Duke's door. I'm sorry to bother you, I just wanted to tell you that I'm back. It just so happened that the Duke also had something to say to her. I heard about what happened with the escort boy. Mello pleaded with the Duke not to punish Isaiah. He always protected me in the past, so he was just doing the same this time. She had the same feeling when talking to her mother today. They had lived together for so many years but didn't truly understand each other. And it was the same for her and Isaiah. The Duke said he understood, and Mello breathed a sigh of relief. So you won't punish him then? But her hopes were quickly dashed. Receiving a proper punishment will be good for that escort boy as well. He then magically produced a girl's magazine, originally intending for Mello to buy whatever she liked. However, the girl misunderstood his intentions. Assuming the Duke was worrying about Retta's winter clothes, she confidently promised, "Leave it to me, I will definitely pick out the most suitable clothes for the young lady." This time he had lost the battle for his daughter's affection, but it didn't matter. He still had his undefeated fate. As soon as she walked out, she bumped into the two-faced eldest young master. Weren't the things on that cart the documents he wanted her to copy? Claude struck first. Were you just thinking about helping me? I know, it's to thank me for accompanying you to the prison. Right? In the wrong, Mello had no choice but to tearfully agree. When they arrived at the library, Claude handed her a book. The date on it was from around the time she was born. Her mother once told her that although it was spring, there was a massive snowstorm. Unseasonal weather like that would definitely have been recorded by someone. Her mother had been fleeing to hide from soldiers at the time. Seeing the girl finally perk up, Claude smiled with relief. The two analyzed the situation. Her mother had likely done something disgraceful and was hiding due to a guilty conscience. In that kind of weather, for a pregnant woman to beg for help at people's doors without a single person opening up, an order must have been given. A long time ago, an assassin trying to murder a royal family member had disguised himself as a visitor and hid in a house in a village the royals were passing through. However, the plan failed, and the assassin wiped out that entire family before finally being caught. Ever since then, whenever a royal carriage passed through any village, an order was issued forbidding anyone from taking in strangers. And on the exact day Mello was born, the emperor's younger brother happened to be visiting the County of Grace. At this point, Claude pulled out a book bearing the royal seal. He did some mental calculations. I didn't go too far, just crossed the line a little bit. The young master had successfully turned the girl into his accomplice. He pointed at the cart, and Mello suddenly remembered. No wonder the young master had promised she wouldn't have to do any copying work. So this was the trap. How could this demonic young master ever be kind enough to help her for nothing? She didn't dare to continue, afraid her hopes would fall through. Yet, acting completely out of character, the man encouraged her, assuring her she would definitely find it. I'll help you look, so it's perfectly fine for you to let yourself hope. Mello didn't understand why he was suddenly being so nice to her. Claude smiled meaningfully. If he bullied the person his sister liked, Retta would definitely hate him, wouldn't she? so he had no choice but to accept that his sister's favorite person wasn't him. He handed the banned royal book to the girl. Anyway, you'd better repay me well for this. Mello carefully opened the book, her heart suddenly pounding fiercely. When she was little, the village children would spread rumors everywhere that she was the daughter of a criminal. How could a child like that possibly have a birthday? She had only heard that it was the day the spring flowers bloomed. The girl buried her head in the book, choking back sobs as she spoke. Even though it brought back sad memories, she had finally found her own birthday. Claude wiped the tears from her face. Can you tell me now? When is your birthday? The very next day, Retta drew a picture for her. She stared at it for 2 straight hours, the corners of her mouth unconsciously turning up. Just then, a guest arrived. The young man fidgeted restlessly in the reception room, flinching when he heard the door open. The moment he saw Mello in person, Isaiah almost burst into tears. He immediately dropped to his knees in front of the girl. I was wrong. I'm a jerk. I shouldn't have forced you to do something you didn't want to do. If you want, just hit me. The girl gave an understanding smile. I'm the one who should be apologizing to you. In the past, you told me so many times to fight back myself, but I always ran away. Thank you. The moment he locked eyes with the girl, his face turned bright red. Isaiah finally understood one thing. He had always wanted Mello to be independent. But when that time actually came, he surprisingly felt a bit lost. Despite what he said, he really liked it when Mello relied on him. In the end, he felt at peace and thanked the girl. Mello reached out her hand. Then let's shake hands and make up. Noticing the girl's injured wrist, Isaiah immediately dropped to his knees again, kowtowing repeatedly. Hit me. Beat me until your anger is gone. Hit me hard. Mello hastily explained, No, it's not like that. That was because of Master Ronnie. The second young master showed up at her door directly to demand justice. He wanted the same treatment as his older brother. Mello readily agreed. However, Master Ronnie can't drink tea yet, so I'll prepare some milk for you instead. Treated like a little kid, Ronnie exploded with anger. Later on, during one of the tea deliveries, a rushing Ronnie accidentally dropped and shattered a teacup. In a panic to clean up the shards, he cut his hand. Mello stepped forward to help, but also accidentally hurt herself. Hearing the news, Isaiah instantly transformed into a protective wolfhound. Why should his childhood sweetheart have to do menial tasks like serving tea? Mello quickly changed the subject. By the way, did you get punished because of what happened at the prison that day? Isaiah's face turned grim, recalling that the Duke had not only forgiven him, but also given him the qualification to become a knight. However, the punishment was having to wash the socks of all the burly men in the Knight Order. The disgusting foot odor made it impossible to breathe. Mello giggled. It's a good thing it's all over now. I was really worried about you before. Just as he was about to confess his feelings, Ronnie slammed the door open. How much longer are you going to make me wait? Those jellies are about to melt away. Clutching his flushed cheeks, he demanded an explanation. You have to wait a really long time to buy those. Noticing that Mello kept staring at his hand, the tsundere young master quickly hid it. Anyway, you have to come with me right now. I still want my tea. The moment Mello spoke, she put him right in his place. If you don't drink milk, you won't grow any taller. Ronnie stole a glance at her, sizing up his own height, completely ignoring Isaiah, who was still kneeling on the floor. Fine, since you're begging me so much, I'll reluctantly drink milk. Emotionally dense, Mello assumed he was just in a hurry to give the jellies to his sister. Ignored from start to finish, Isaiah finally snapped, Mello is not the young master's maid. Things gradually veered off track, and Retta also got dragged into this bizarre competition. Whoever won would get to monopolize Mello's time for the day. Little Retta carefully studied the cards in her hand, suddenly stood up and interrupted the argument. A royal flush was slapped neatly onto the table. Hands on her little hips, she declared proudly, Retta won. Completely charmed, Mello hugged Retta's little face and showered her with kisses. Ronnie shouted, It's not over! Retta might have won the card game this time, but Redhead, the match between you and me isn't over yet. The two decided to settle the score once more. There was a treasure in this estate, and whoever successfully borrows it wins. Mello tried to stop them. How could the dignified young masters of the Baldwin Duke's family act so recklessly? Facing Ronnie's challenge, Isaiah accepted without hesitation. Cradled in Mello's arms, Retta wore a look of pure bliss. All right. The Higgins family across generations, serving as the butlers of the Baldwin Duke's estate, have an obligation to record every affair within the household. Therefore, the study was filled with books documenting history. Those grand records faithfully detailed the events of every single day, which was also the pride of the Higgins family. The sleepy little Retta went off to have sweet dreams first. The immature duo discussed the rules. They would take turns trying to grab the June records, and whoever got caught would lose. In a way, these two were actually quite in sync. Waiting until no one was around, Ronnie sneaked into the study. Unexpectedly, Mello suddenly appeared and startled him. Mello said she needed him for something, and just as a maid happened to pass by, he suddenly grabbed Mello's hand and tightly shut the door. Ronnie's heart pounded wildly. This bet was incredibly important to him. Are you here to get in my way? Don't think I'll admit defeat just like that. When I win, you'll have to obediently drink tea alone with me. Mello was a bit confused. Alone with you? Ronnie's face flushed red as he stammered an explanation. I mean, serve me tea. What wild ideas are you having? In reality, Mello was just worried about his hand. She noticed during the day that his wound hadn't healed, so she brought a medical kit to bandage it for him. Hearing that the girl had come specifically for him, Ronnie was secretly overjoyed. Hearing her say she was also afraid Isaiah might cause trouble, and that she needed to be able to defend him if anything happened, Ronnie patted his chest. That guy is my guest. Even if something does happen, it's my job to defend him. Mello snickered. As expected, the young master didn't dislike Isaiah either. He turned his head away in denial. Right, what was it you wanted to ask me? Mello voiced her question. Is there something important the young master wants to tell me? Is that why you want me to keep serving you tea? He lowered his head guiltily. Back then, I called you a fraud and told you to go back to your own home. During that time, many swindlers came to our house, tricking us with their lies, so I thought you were one too. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Seeing Mello just stare at him without saying a word, he spoke in a trembling voice. Did that hurt you a lot? Mello hurriedly denied it, saying it was fine. Mello knew that although he had a sharp tongue, he had a good heart. All his thoughts were written plainly on his face. How could she not know? Ronnie sheepishly told her, You don't have to go home anymore. Plus, you don't have anywhere to go back to anyway. I don't want to end up all alone again either. Even though my older brother is home now, he usually stays at the academy. Before he could finish, Mello spoke up. And there's Master Jeremiah too. Since he went to the Magic Tower, he has never returned. According to the novel about the Duke raising 4 children, the third young master, Jeremiah, was remarkably gifted and poised to become a great mage, because he spent most of his childhood at the Magic Tower. Before Retta's arrival, Master Ronnie must have been the only child in the Duke's estate. Under those circumstances, how overjoyed he must have been to learn that he might have a sister coming home. Yet, time and time again, only frauds showed up, leading to one disappointment after another. Thinking about this, Mello could understand why he had angrily accused her of being a fraud the first time they met, and she also realized why he was so quick to like someone. It must have been because he was simply too lonely before. Ronnie was shocked. How do you know about Jeremiah? Who let it slip? Mello didn't know how to explain. Ronnie's eyes instantly lit up. It was my brother, wasn't it? Other than my gentle older brother, no one would tell you about Jeremiah. I guessed right, didn't I? Jeremiah is seriously amazing. I heard that last time he even delivered a message to the royal family on behalf of the Tower Master. That means Jeremiah could potentially become the next master of the Magic Tower. In the future, he'll definitely be renowned worldwide as the Baldwin Mage, and the Baldwin family's reputation will stand at the very pinnacle of the Magic Tower. Jeremiah is my younger brother. So, do you get it now? It's fine for you to keep staying here. I've said so much, do you still not understand? Although I'm someone who prefers solitude, there's no helping it since you haven't found a place to settle down yet. These words plunged Mello into deep thought. Right, she had only been focused on getting used to life in the Duke's estate, never thinking about this issue. She couldn't keep living here forever with Retta like she was now. After all, she would become an adult one day too. Ronnie didn't realize that his words had hurt her. Of course, you can continue to stay here. Suddenly, footsteps echoed from outside the door, and the 2 little ones looked up in terror. As the door slowly creaked open, Ronnie covered his mouth, not daring to make a single sound. When they turned around, they were absolutely terrified, scaring Ronnie out of his wits. Young master, behind you! Ronnie looked back nervously, only to see the head maid holding a lantern looming right over them. As a punishment the next day, Ronnie was forced to eat 2 carrots. Meanwhile, Mello was helping the eldest young master organize documents. Claude intentionally brought up how Mello used him as a shield the other day. She hastily explained the misunderstanding. Master Ronnie mistakenly thought you were the one who told me about the 3rd young master, and I wanted to explain it to him too. But before she could finish, Claude picked up the thread. It was Ronnie who couldn't hold back and just kept talking on his own, right? He never gets a chance to talk to anyone about Jeremiah, so Ronnie's state of mind is perfectly understandable. But why do you think we never get a chance to talk about Jeremiah? Ever since she stepped foot into this estate, she had sensed a strange incongruity. In the Baldwin Duke's estate, no one ever mentioned Jeremiah. According to the original novel, it should be because hearing his name would make the Duke sad. So everyone silently agreed to never bring him up. Sometimes just stating certain facts can also make people sad. Of course, it doesn't matter if you talk to me. What I mean is, we can share secrets. How about it? Mello refused without a second thought. You're definitely just going to use the secret to boss me around, aren't you? I'll never fall for it that easily again. Originally thought Mello was somewhat of a mature child, but it seems you're still quite naive. I only returned home temporarily at my father's request to act as Retta's temporary guardian, and tomorrow morning I have to return to the academy. Mello blanked out for a moment. I actually forgot about that. Hearing this, Claude sighed helplessly. You really say such hurtful things without even blinking. In the original story, leaving the next morning was a little white lie Claude told his sister. He was afraid his young sister would purposefully wake up early just to see him off, so he actually left in the early hours of the morning. Your reaction isn't quite right. I thought you'd be thrilled. The grip in Mello's hands tightened a fraction. Retta will definitely be very sad, but you don't need to worry too much. The young lady has the Duke by her side, and Master Ronnie too. That's true, so I'm not too worried. Plus she has Mello to keep her company. Mello lowered her head, hesitating again and again, but ultimately couldn't bring herself to say anything. The next day, just as he was about to leave, he noticed 2 letters slipped under his door. Opening them, the first thing that caught his eye was a drawing of him and Retta, done by Retta herself. Beneath those childish strokes, the purest affection tugged at his heartstrings. Flipping further back, he found Mello's letter. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to wake up when you departed, so I wrote you a letter. In truth, I had long given up on finding my birthday, because I always felt there was no way to uncover such a thing. But you told me there was a way, and you said you would definitely help me find it. You don't know how happy I was back then. Every year on my birthday, I will remember this. Thank you so very much. Claude was lost in thought for a long time until a servant reminded him, Young master, it's time to depart. My apologies, I just received a special farewell, so I was delayed for a moment. Long after he had left, when Mello woke up, her eyes suddenly flew wide open. She quickly sat up and sprinted outside, looking everywhere for a sign of Claude. But it seemed he had already departed. Hearing the commotion, the butler hurried over and handed her the young master's reply. Forget that painful snowstorm. May the rest of your life be a spring filled with blooming yellow flowers. It felt as though he was wishing her a future full of blessings. Meanwhile, the man in question was leaning against the carriage window, brimming with smiles. Inside the estate, Mello and Retta played hide-and-seek. Usually it was very easy to find her. You've improved a lot this time. Upon learning that Mello often called his wife Grandma, the butler wanted to hear her call him Grandpa too. Unfortunately, he was too shy to say it out loud. Seeing this, Mello patted her chest. If you ever have any instructions, please say so at any time. At the same time, the sky outside the window turned terrifyingly gloomy. Ronnie instructed Retta to hold it in no matter how scared she was, waiting as she crouched beneath the window. I just need you to hide obediently right here. Mello will absolutely never find you. Peals of thunder boomed in her ears. Staring up at the stormy sky, Retta clutched her small hands in fear. Even if Mello was trembling from the thunder and lightning, she encouraged herself not to be afraid. She had to hold it in even if she was scared. She wanted to shock Mello and give her a surprise. Hearing a tapping sound, little Retta happily pressed herself against the window. Is Mello here? Yet there was nothing but emptiness before her eyes. Instead, the rain poured harder and harder, and a bolt of lightning struck the sky. Frightened out of her wits, little Retta was suddenly struck by the memory of her mother passing away in that carriage accident, the very day she was kidnapped by slave traders. Her legs gave out, and she collapsed, covering her ears as much as possible as her breathing grew rapid, murmuring Mello's name. A nauseating wave of dizziness hit her. Unable to bear it any longer, little Retta fainted by the window. Little did she know Mello was currently frantic. She had searched everywhere, yet she still couldn't find little Retta. It was raining outside. She had to hurry. She couldn't leave her out in the rain. She couldn't leave Retta all alone. Crying, she sought Master Ronnie's help. Realizing he had messed up big time, Ronnie immediately grabbed her hand and ran outside. Carriage under heavy rain. Mello suddenly recalled that the year her mother kidnapped Retta, she had been in a carriage amidst a torrential downpour. She violently flung the carriage door open, only to see little Retta lying lifelessly inside, her face growing paler by the second as she struggled to breathe. Meanwhile, in the Magic Tower, Jeremiah, the darling of the Magic Tower and the third young master of the Baldwin Duke's family, was summoned by the Tower Master. Back at the Duke's estate, although little Retta had no physical abnormalities, she had suffered a massive psychological shock and remained in a coma. The doctors were powerless in this situation. Ronnie hung his head, blaming himself endlessly. The Duke knelt down to comfort him. This is not your fault. Don't cry, she will be all right. All right? In the novel about the Duke raising 4 kids, Retta frequently faced various predicaments, but the original story never mentioned her falling into a prolonged coma. It was all because of her, the anomaly that Retta had been thrown into this dire situation. It's all my fault. Suddenly a rebuttal came. You just wanted to play with her. Mello apologized guiltily. I knew exactly what Retta was afraid of, yet I didn't tell the young master. Don't be ridiculous. Retta is my sister, so this is entirely my responsibility. You didn't do anything wrong. As her brother, not knowing what my sister is afraid of is fundamentally my fault. He shoved the yellow flowers in his arms toward Mello. Deliver these to Retta for me. Doesn't she like things like this? Looking at the yellow flowers, Mello smiled. Yes, she does. Inside the room, the butler suggested utilizing the power of the magic tower. I know you are quite reluctant to do this, but right now, even the temple is out of options. Our only choice is to seek help from the magic tower. The young lady has been comatose for several days, and I am deeply worried about the toll this will take on her body. It wasn't that the Duke didn't want to. Rather, he had promised his wife never to let anyone discover her secret, or else it would implicate the children's futures, especially Jeremiah's. After sending that child away, he couldn't let anyone from the magic tower come here under any circumstances. They would definitely spot the clues. The butler's face was etched with worry. There are no longer any traces of the madam to be found within the estate. It will be all right. Pondering deeply as he looked at his youngest daughter, the Duke finally compromised. I will write a commission letter to the magic tower right now. Mages typically compare themselves to a bull holding magical power. When Jeremiah first arrived at the magic tower, the power he possessed was already on par with that of an archmage. Moreover, he manipulated the magic within his bowl with far greater proficiency than anyone else. His formidable strength was enough to instill fear in others. Although hailed as the undisputed heir to the Tower Master, his status remained merely that of a cultivator, not a true mage. This was because the Tower Master had perceived the deep darkness within the boy's heart. The sole surviving memory of his earliest childhood brought him nothing but an abyss of darkness. Consequently, this child was so mature that it even made the Tower Master feel a tinge of guilt, wondering if his teachings to him had been incorrect. Due to a recent back injury, Jeremiah was running errands on his teacher's behalf. He was very happy. This represented his teacher's trust in him. The Tower Master believed the time had come. Do you wish to earn the title of mage? I will assign you one more task. If you can resolve this matter, I will grant you the title. I have a commission letter here. The moment he saw the hallmark seal of the Duke's family, Jeremiah's expression instantly darkened. Their mother's death had caused his sister to trap herself in her sea of consciousness forever. The third brother, abandoned by his family, originally had no desire to save her, but then he received his father's very first commission. Reuniting after a long separation, the boy introduced himself as a cultivator, not as Jeremiah Baldwin. I will do my absolute best regarding your matter, Duke. His eyes were filled with icy coldness. His father remained silent for a second. Welcome home. I've been waiting for you, Jeremiah Baldwin. Ignoring him, the boy turned his head to greet his second brother instead. As they brushed past each other, the boy mumbled under his breath. If that slave trader had just sold her off back then, I wouldn't have had to come to this place. Ronnie thought he was hearing things. He hesitated over whether to ask, but ultimately swallowed his question. As an older brother, he had always been proud of his mage younger brother. Now Retta would surely get better soon. Along the way, he showered him with concern, and upon hearing the word brother, he practically bloomed with joy. Little did he know, not only did Jeremiah not see him as an older brother, he found him incredibly annoying. A spoiled young master coddled in the estate, actually thinking of himself as the master of the Duke's household. As soon as he pushed the door open, the first thing that caught his eye was his sister's chubby little face. His brother asked him, "Is it pretty?" Jerry glanced at Retta and gave an, "Mm-hmm." Ronnie immediately corrected him. "Not her, I'm talking about this room. I decorated it. So if you ever want to redecorate your room, just ask your big brother for help anytime." However, Jerry spoke in a consistently passive-aggressive tone. Brother has always lived under the Duke's meticulous protection, so naturally, everything you see is good. I need to examine Retta's condition. I require silence as if there is no one else in the room. Ronnie understood the underlying meaning and awkwardly took his leave. Before departing, he didn't forget to mention that he would stand guard nearby, ensuring no one disturbed him. Once the door was shut, the boy instantly dropped his smile. That annoying pest was finally out. Looking at his sister, whose appearance so closely resembled their mother's, he inexplicably recalled that painful memory. Their mother had said with her own lips that she would kill this child. His hand slowly reached toward Retta. Outside the door, Mello came to check on little Retta. Hearing that Jeremiah was currently administering magical treatment, she immediately sensed something was wrong. If he uses magic on Retta, she'll instantly be thrown into crisis. Jeremiah gripped her neck, his face etched with absolute loathing. The next second, he appeared to lose control. Time froze in this moment. He didn't actually hate his sister and subsequently let go. Gently stroking his sister's forehead, a faint sliver of green light emanated from his fingertip, and in a flash, he entered another dimension. After examining her from head to toe, there were no particularly obvious symptoms. She was simply wandering within her memories, which was why she couldn't wake up. Because she was having a good dream, she was reluctant to awaken. Although he could dive directly into her consciousness and drag her back to reality, he didn't want to use that method. He was afraid of encountering that woman. Perhaps Retta was just as insane as that woman. But rest assured, my dear sister, I will help you recover. Because I still need to obtain the title of mage. For now, I still require the Duke's estate. If things hadn't turned out this way for him, this spoiled little brat who received every ounce of their mother's doting love, he would have definitely... Meanwhile, Mello was as frantic as a cat on a hot tin roof. She just wanted to take one look at the young lady and she would come right out. Her every plea was rejected by Ronnie, until she saw the Duke father and earnestly begged him. The Duke also disapproved, fearing that magical power could harm others. Approaching Retta right now might be dangerous. He knelt down. Rest assured, I am a man of my word. I swear it on everything I own. Left with no choice, Mello relented. Please, you must stay by Lady Retta's side to guard her. When night fell, the butler reminded the young master to return to his room. He refused, using watching over his sister as an excuse. Fearing the young master's body wouldn't be able to handle it, the butler insisted. And unable to win the argument, Jerry had to go back. As they neared the room, he said it was fine. I'm not a little child anymore. Watching the butlers retreating back, he turned and walked toward that bedroom. The very hell that felt like a nightmare. The place that had completely destroyed him. Just thinking about that scene made Jerry's head ache as if it were splitting open. Shielding his eyes, he walked into the bedroom, the bright lights flickering again and again. He traced the scar on his forehead. This was the reason he had never wanted to come home. Suddenly, his father's voice came from outside the door. Jeremiah, I figured you must be tired, so I brought you a cup of hot cocoa. Well then, good night. After placing it by the door, his father left. Jerry's eyes were blazing with fury. He violently threw the door open, roaring at the man called his father. You make me stay in this kind of room, and you dare say good night? He smashed the cup of hot cocoa, glaring at the man with uncontainable rage. I curse the Baldwins. I curse you, the person who only showed care to his abandoned son when his sister was on the brink of death. He bellowed, cursing his father. Just the thought of sharing the same name made him feel sick. I hate you! The pain of many years came pouring out. His father's hands trembled slightly. I know. He knelt down, took Jeremiah's hands, and carefully checked to see if he was hurt, if any shards had cut him. The boy didn't understand why he wasn't getting angry. A tight slap would have been much more satisfying. As long as I successfully resolve this commission, I can earn the title of mage. Then, I won't have to use this disgusting Baldwin name ever again. This time, I am the one abandoning the Baldwins. His father finally revealed his true feelings. Jeremiah, you have always been in my heart. Not for a single moment have I ever let you go. Yet these words felt like sharp thorns piercing deeply into the boy's heart. He locked himself in his room, his mind completely blank. Outside the door, his father had no choice but to leave. Everyone has their own very first memory. If you erase childhood memories piece by piece, like pruning the branches of a tree, what is left at the very end is that first memory. Some people recall a trivial little detail, while others treasure a highly unique experience as their first memory. These all represent their childhoods. At 5 years old, his mother's scream, followed by a sharp pain slicing across his forehead. That was Jeremiah's first memory. Holding his unconscious body, his mother had told his father, I will kill this child. He heard it with absolute clarity back then. But he never imagined that death would be his very first memory. The young Jeremiah didn't know what that word meant. But one day, he read a line in a book. The wicked suffered the penalty of death. From then on, he began to suspect. Was he a bad child? Until one day, his father said that their mother had left for some unavoidable reasons and would temporarily be living outside the estate for a while. The children didn't understand. Their father hesitated before answering, Your mother's health is not very good. Last night, her condition suddenly worsened and she had to leave overnight. Jerry asked cautiously, Is Mommy sick? Upon receiving a confirming answer, he clenched his little fists in disappointment. Liars! From then on, whenever he asked where his mother was, everyone said they didn't know. Is it because I'm a bad child that Mommy won't come to see me? A maid immediately denied it. Our young master is the most well-behaved. Even so, he still believed they were lying. His father said that until the very last moment before leaving the estate, their mother was worried about them. Jerry didn't want to listen to these lies anymore. His mother definitely hated him. She always spent time with his older brothers, never even bothering to see him. Mommy definitely hates me, that's why she wanted to kill me. But she failed, and that's why she left the estate. Why won't anyone tell the truth? When his father asked if he was okay, the boy's eyes brimmed with tears, yet he swallowed down all his grievances. Liar. During the few days Retta was in a coma, Mello was constantly distracted. She decided to sneak a peek, and outside the corridor, Master Ronnie appeared to be agonizing over something. When he looked up, he happened to lock eyes with Mello, with those beautiful eyes staring straight at him. Ronnie's face flushed red in fright, and the tsundere cat instantly bristled. He inexplicably felt so humiliated to have made such a fool of himself in front of her. At that moment, Mello happened to notice the article concerning the magic tower. The boy rubbed the lump on the back of his head and snatched the paper off the floor. Don't even think about peeking. Do you think looking at me like that will make me show you this letter? Mello giggled. Since that document requires even the young master to study it so diligently, there's no way I'd be able to understand it anyway. Ronnie verbally denied it, but his body betrayed him. He had literally been holding a dictionary, flipping through it as he read. Sweating profusely from nervousness and embarrassment, Ronnie thought that, at this rate, Mello would definitely think he was a massive idiot who couldn't even speak his own native language. He turned his head away haughtily. Since you're begging me so much, I'll reluctantly let you take a look. Mello glanced at it. So you were the one who wrote to ask him what Master Jerry likes? Master Jerry liked tea brewed with pickled lemons, loved eating chocolates to replenish his energy when he was tired, and his breakfast absolutely had to be fruit paired with milk. Ronnie was utterly shocked. How was she able to read those crooked, scrawling letters? The girl giggled and spoke. In the village I used to live in, there were many elderly folks whose eyesight wasn't very good, so ever since I was little, I helped them read letters. The handwriting on this letter looks pretty similar to what those grandpas and grandmas write. In truth, she couldn't read obscure characters either, but thankfully, the Tower Master purposefully chose simple words to write. Ronnie fell to his knees, his pride deeply wounded. I'm someone who is kind, gentle, and also very smart, so let me prove my kind and gentle side to you. While Ronnie was deciphering the contents of the letter, their father had already stayed one step ahead, ordering the servants to prepare a breakfast of fruit and milk. Thinking about the wonderful time they shared yesterday, Mello was not only pretty, but her voice was also very pleasant to listen to. What wild nonsense was he thinking about? Ronnie quickly shook off the thought, blushing as he muttered under his breath. She's an ugly duckling. She's definitely not pretty at all. It's all her fault for making me so flustered. Ronnie pushed the door open. Seeing that Jerry wasn't awake yet, he originally planned to quietly leave the serving cart inside and go, but then he noticed his younger brother gasping for air in obvious discomfort. Just as he was hesitating over whether to call for someone, he saw that his brother's forehead was covered in sweat. Brushing his hair aside, he saw that prominent scar. Had the magic tower not treated it for him? The people there weren't true family after all, so perhaps Jerry hadn't opened his heart to them. He gently touched the scar, and suddenly Jerry jolted awake from his dream. The next second, he summoned a fierce gust of wind that sent Ronnie flying. Losing his balance, Ronnie crashed to the ground with a loud thud. Still reeling from the shock, Jerry immediately got out of bed upon hearing his brother's voice. Are you all right? Ronnie hurriedly apologized. I just wanted to wipe your sweat. I didn't mean to scare you. I'm truly sorry. Jerry wiped the sweat from his face. His brother now knew about the scar. He covered it with his bangs again. Don't worry about it, Ronnie yelled. How can I not worry about it? Who exactly hurt my precious baby brother? I absolutely will not let this slide, Jerry scoffed. Do you really want to know? Ronnie nodded without hesitation. Then, brother, you have to hate the person who hurt me right along with me, okay?